Welcome to my program, Bashys Corner. We discuss issues like politics, culture, sports, integration, education, any issue which mainstream media doesn't want, doesn't care, or doesn't bother, but we do. On 21st of November 2017, Denmark will be holding election both for municipalities and for regional councils. And I'm very happy that many young people are candidates for different political parties. It's a good sign for the future because our elderly generation of politicians, they have lost touch with the public and also they go in circles and circles. Making important decisions is very important, and that is where young people come. One such person is my guest today. He's a candidate for Social Democratic Party in the capital region. Welcome to my program, Carl.
My name is Jarl. But thank you.
Sorry, sorry, Jarl. Yes, beautiful name, by the way.
You too.
Let me start by asking you your reasons to join Social Democratic Party and not any other party. You're a young man. You have traveled. You know why Social Democratic Party.
Well, I was an even younger man when I joined them. It was in 2006, when I was 16 years old. I joined the youth department, which actually had a meeting room in this building where we are sitting in right now.
Oh, really?
Don't know if
yeah,
you
that's
knew that.
true. Yeah, of course.
But it's a big question. But mainly, I was pretty sure I was a left winger, not a right winger. That's where I think the opinions are correct, the way we look at other people, equality, etc. And choosing between those parties on the left wing, I believe that the Social Democratic Party have always been able to make results, not just resolutions. So grabbing power when possible for the last 100 years, and I think that's important too. So having the right opinions and not let them be opinions, but also enforce into law.
Implement them.
That's important, yeah.
Did your family influence you? Because many people, young people, they learn when they sit on a dining table with their parents, they talk, you know. Are you politically aware, born politically aware?
Yeah, of course, I've talked with my parents about political issues, but they were not like social democrats or anything.
No,
definitely
they were not from working class.
Well, they are. They're not workers. They both are permanently ill, so they haven't been able to have a work.
Okay.
So maybe in that regard, they have taught me a lot about politics because I've seen how the welfare state have helped them.
Okay.
And helped me also. I know you're from Pakistan. They got a little bit different system there, right?
Of course.
So it was not a thing I thought much about when I was a child, but the system we have here is very supportive for people, no matter which social background they have.
True.
So in that way, they have influence.
I appreciate that too very much. You studied history in the university.
That's right.
Did studying at the university and history, did it sharpen your political awareness on those issues you talked about?
Not much, actually.
Not much.
No.
They don't teach
maybe,
you.
Maybe if I was a more brilliant student, they would.
Okay.
Well, I don't believe you have to have studied at a university to have an awareness of social issues. But of course, the study of history shows you a broader time scale. So not accepting the status quo as we live in now as a given. Of course, history can expand that view. It's not a given that we have the society we have today. So what's it called? Human action have gone before us, before we were born, long before we were born. So of course, in that regard.
Talking about history, is there any historical figure in Denmark which you really like, which is a role model for you, especially among your party, Social Democratic Party?
Role model is a big word, but of course there's...
Which you like?
Which of course, there's a lot of people like... Thorvald Stauning was probably the greatest social democrat we've had in Denmark so far.
During the war.
The first prime minister. Yeah, he was also prime minister during the war. I think he died in 1943.
He's the one who said, "Stauning are chaos."
Correctly, yeah. So that's a little bit tragic. He died when he did, occupied by Nazi Germany, undemocratic society system.
But it's very short and very powerful message, you know.
Sure. Yeah, it worked. He got more votes than we do today. But if I couldn't mention, now I am an historian, so for instance, Knud Heinesen and Mogens Lykketoft also is great finance ministers.
That's what I wanted to ask you.
Really? Both?
Yeah.
Really? Okay.
You talked about Stauning and so, because on your Facebook, I saw some wonderful picture, but I saw a picture of, it's a painting actually, of Mogens Lykketoft. I personally like him very much, you know, since he was finance minister, but also when he was foreign minister. What do you like about him?
All of it.
Okay, describe.
Well, I think he has committed his life, not only his personal life, to improving the welfare state for the Social Democratic Party. Then, of course, I think he's a very intelligent man and so forth. Also, a point which is not that well known is that he came from very humble beginnings. He's an adoptive child, and he went through the university system and got a candidate degree in economics, and of course used his life to improve the conditions which helped him in the first place. I think that's very honorable. So sure, he is one of the biggest social democrats alive, not only in Denmark, but more
and
broad.
what I like about him, when he opens his mouth, something good comes out. You know? I really like very much. During 9/11, you know, I met both Paul Rasmussen and him, and there was two very different angles they had. And I enjoyed Mogens Lykketoft because he could analyze things. You know, he didn't look at it from only one perspective. Anyway,
but Nyrup did or
huh?
Did Nyrup only look at it from one perspective?
Because Nyrup, he was prime minister.
Yeah, of course.
We invited him to our meeting, and he started talking about Muslims should send their daughters to school, and so I said, what has to do with 9/11? You know, that's good to different. Anyway, let's come back to your wish to be elected for the regional council in Copenhagen. Why not Copenhagen City? Because it has more power than the council of regional council.
Well, both my parents have health issues, so so I've been a closest relative to both of them all of my life, and the regional level deals with health and hospitals. That's the primary issue.
True.
So me stepping into politics at the first place was based on health issues.
And you want to help them?
Not only my parents, but the health
yeah.
system is where I think equality is most important, because lack of health leads to shorter lives. And I've seen that in practice. Well, my parents are still alive, but they're still sick. Yes. Of course, they've gotten better help than they would in all other kind of countries, and free help, which is important. But there's really room for improvement in a lot of areas. So it's just a bigger interest for me than the city council would be.
One of my friends, he was visiting his family in Canada, and he got heart attack. And he came to hospital, and they said if he want to be operated, and he said yes. And one doctor asked him, was he Canadian? Or he said, no, I'm Danish. So he said, what are you doing here? Go back to Denmark, because they have the best heart surgeon in the world. So it must, he really, and free. I mean, and there it was cost $100,000 anyway.
Really?
So what is your political agenda over and above this talking about health? You must have much more than that, only health issues.
Well, in short, it is to give a voice to those who are not being heard.
And who are they?
Well, for me, they are the people with mental illnesses. That's it primarily.
Okay.
And my mother does have those as well. Okay. So that's my personal,
of course.
What's it called? Envy to, what's it called?
Angle
to it, yeah. But secondary, I think it's people who come from socially deprived areas, which I also do myself.
Yes.
Which are not participating in the elections as much as the general population, which are dying before, and which on all parameters have it tougher. Those people are not getting heard, are not being heard at the moment. And I think it's important to give them a voice.
So the question is, what can you do, or what can you bring to the table which other candidates from other parties can't?
Other than my charm and good look.
That's very important.
Yeah, you said it, but
that's right.
Well, I think I have a background which they don't have. I don't know everybody which is running for election.
That's true.
But I know that these issues are not being taken as seriously as I would like them to. And I know I will do that if I get elected. But so I can bring that to the table.
Okay. I know that many people appreciate the health system, but many people also criticize. For example, the long waiting times for operations and all kind of things, you know. Also, public schools, they deal with public schools are also under regional council, isn't it?
No.
No, okay. But then the question is that in the health system, what would you work to improve it? How would you improve it?
Well, we have to equalize mental illness and physical illness in a much higher degree.
Okay.
It shouldn't matter whether you have pain in your mind or pain in your knees, to put it bluntly. You get a lot, in my opinion.
And in your heart.
In your heart, yeah, but heart could be both. Okay? It's just a figurative mean about mental distress.
Are there many people who are mentally distressed in Denmark or in region?
Yeah, extremely. Every 10 people you meet has around that. Is that big?
In a rich country like Denmark?
I don't think it's anything to do with how rich you are. Maybe it does, but there's a lot of people that have mental illnesses, just as there's people that have knee problems or whatever. But it's a fun question to ask because it shows something. It's kind of taboo to talk about mental illness. Because if you came and tell me that you had a deep depression, for instance, some people might think that you also had other problems, which you were unreliable, etc., etc. And that's a problem in itself.
Yes.
It's a bigger problem than the region can solve.
Is it taboo to talk about depression and mental issues?
I think it's a lot better here and now than it was 30 years ago or in another country. But we still got a long way to go.
Okay.
Definitely. And on a regional level, we also have a commitment to do as good a job for the mentally ill as for the physical ill.
And it's doing already?
What?
Regional council does a lot of work with this issue.
Sure, it's an economical priority how much money you put in each area. And the mentally ill are often so weak that they don't have the power to yell at the politicians or go to the media or at your show. And I suggest, I think, or vote. They don't vote as much either. It's my opinion. This is what I've understood to be true. And that, of course, is a way of political prioritizing. If it's a free round to cut on people with mental illnesses and not, for instance, with people which have cancer, which is also important,
of course,
then you can see where the economics are going. So that's something I would bring to the table, and that's what's closest to my heart, definitely.
Well, if we come from health issues to another issue which you are quite involved, in February 15 this year, you wrote a long article in Information, which I read.
Too long?
No. It's a beautiful article, you know.
Oh,
I'm very happy that this article you wrote, and the headline, but what you wrote in this issue and the issues you took are also very close to my heart. And I think that the issues also are very interesting for ethnic minorities. You know, we discuss those issues here. For somebody who don't know, so I will just tell you, you wrote that according to the Danish state, you grew up in a ghetto. And so question is, what are your objections to the word ghetto?
Well, I don't have much objections to the words. Of course, it's a strong word, and in a historical context, it could be taken wrongly. But I think people roughly know what the name means.
Okay.
But of course, what's the correct term in English? Social deprived areas?
Yes, yeah. I call them social deprived.
I don't believe the problem is in the words. Also, more generally, you can have a debate about words. What should we call things? But the most important thing is to localize problems and solve them.
I agree with you.
Of course,
but the problem is that the word ghetto historically is completely different construction. You know.
Yeah, of course, it was meant to closed areas for Jews, right?
Exactly.
Yeah,
in Venice, and then very deprived areas in USA and in UK, other countries where a lot of crimes, drugs. I don't think we have that. That's why. No. I think that the Danish politician should use a word which describes that area. That is why I think socially deprived areas is quite good.
I think that is the correct term that the politicians are using as well.
Now, not before.
Okay, not before. Okay, you know more about this than I do. But of course, it would be a sad story if we had a debate about the words instead of the problem.
Sure.
So sure, if somebody have issues with the word ghetto, which you just argument why it could be reasonable to have, then let's just don't call it ghetto.
Okay, so let's come to the issues in that areas, you know. Can you describe in your own words what kind of living condition were there where you grew up in that area?
Well, most people don't have a job.
Okay.
Some people are sick. Some people are just out of jobs.
In general?
Well, many people. A lot more than in
other areas.
That's one of the criteria for being on a social deprived list. A lot more people than normal are former convicted criminals. A lot of people.
50%.
Is that the criteria?
Yeah. It was when they started in 90s, I remember when they made this big report, it was over 50%. Anyway.
I would think it was a little lower now,
it is,
for instance. And then there's also criteria about a lot of people being sick, a lot of people being from other cultures than the Danish culture. Non-Western cultures, I think, is the criteria. Yeah. So that's just formal criteria. But to live in it is quite good. I have a good childhood. It's not what I'm saying it was a bad childhood.
No.
But when you grow up along so many people which are not in the labor force, it doesn't come as naturally to engage in that pursuit. And the whole culture about middle class values or working class values are in some way not in the social deprived areas, not in the same degree. So,
but you came from that area, and you are different.
Yeah, and a lot of people I know are breaking out of it.
Exactly.
But it's not. There's no Trump wall around the ghettos, of course not. But it is harder to get a good education, etc. If you come from a social deprived area.
True.
I just read recently that 1 in 2 boys from non-Western areas can't read a normal newspaper when they graduate from elementary school.
True.
And they live in areas where they all go to schools at the same place where I live. So you can see that's a problem.
That affects very much, you know.
If you don't have an education, it's harder to get a job. If you don't have a job, it's harder to get even healthy. People die sooner when they have a low education. So it's a real problem. It's a serious problem, whether or not you call it ghetto.
From socially deprived areas to another very important issue which I discuss a lot is that those areas are where minorities live. They are called parallel societies.
What they call?
The parallel societies, you know, that they have their own way of living, their own languages.
Sure. Yeah.
Now, can you see that these societies, those areas where these people live, especially ethnic minorities, they are not a parallel society because people are move around in the society they live in, you know. So do you think that this is the right way to describe them as parallel societies?
Well, on a general level, it's always problematic to generalize too much on people. So ethnic minorities is not one thing.
They are also very different, yeah.
Ethnic majorities is not one thing.
No.
You could say that a lot of the wealthiest people in this country live in a parallel society, not paying taxes, earning much money, and so that could be a classification which was not very just, because most of them, of course, pay taxes. It's my guess.
Yes.
So it's always problematic to generalize too widely. That being said, I believe there is some kind of parallel societies. There is it seems to me like different groups.
But you also call it voluntary apartheid somehow.
I call that in the
article. Yeah.
And that might be too a strong word as well. You would argue.
Well, no, I think that apartheid was where the majority was dictating to the minority. It was the other way around. There was a minority, white minority, dictating on the majority.
That's correct.
But in Danish case, it's the majority which dictates to the minority. So
maybe it's too strong a word. But if I talk too vaguely, I wouldn't get any articles.
Okay.
But apartheid, in my opinion, what it should be meant here is just segregation.
Okay.
And if it's voluntary, it just means that to a large extent, some Muslims are having their own societies, their own rules, and some Danish people are having the same where I grew up, not being interested in integrating at all with each other. That's the provocative title of that article, which is called, and the main argument is that some Danish people have an interest in not being together with Muslim people which live in the same areas which are their neighbors. And some Muslim people are having the exact same notion. And what they are blind to is that they have the same kind of problems, the same kind of same issues, bad schools, bad healthcare, lacking equality in a society which have that as the highest goal. So instead of fighting each other, they should realize that they have the same problems.
Absolutely.
And they will also have the same solutions to those problems. One of them being to vote.
Yes. We come to that. It's very important that your mother moved you to a white-only school in Vanløse.
There's no such thing. White-only school.
Well, I call it white school because most of the children there are white Danes.
Sure, but if it talks not about words, white-only is not the correct term.
Why did she move you from northwest quarter to Vanløse?
Well, I was getting in fights based on the fact that I was Danish. I remember a guy asking me, "Are you Danish?" Never met him before, like when I was 10 or 12 years old. Also before that, and I said yes, and then we started the fight based on that. So
to save you, to protect you, your mom.
That's too simplified, but that's one of the things. Another thing is also that I sincerely believe I got a better education there, not because which skin color people have, but because
I wanted to provoke you to get an answer.
Sure, but now you're getting one. I'm not provoked.
No.
But as we said before, if only 1 in 2 males can read proper to read a normal newspaper, like Ekstrabladet, which is like not the highest linguistic level, right? That's not the case in a school in Vanløse.
No.
I don't think it's much about skin color, of course. So, and it was not white only at all. That, of course.
There are also many white Danes have a problem. Young people also have a problem, exactly like the minority.
Sure, and that's a crucial point also for my mom's choice, because I have the same background as most of the people I lived with.
So you mean
that it's not if I had in some regards was in need of more help from the teachers than all of the other children. But if all the children are in need of extra help, then they cannot give it, and you see the results in those areas.
No, but I'm happy that you talk about both Danes and ethnic minorities who have same issues, and that is very important for emphasize that. It's not only one group has issues. When it comes to socio-economical issues, a lot of people have this.
Sure.
But politicians in Denmark often talk of lack of integration without telling what they mean by integration. Especially the people with a Muslim background, we are now talking about that. Whose fault is that, in your opinion?
Whose fault is it that people talk about it?
People don't integrate as politicians say.
Well, it's a big problem, and all big problems have many guilty people.
Okay.
It cannot be only one.
No.
But I've never seen any politician said, well, I was really like the Muslim minority not to integrate. It seems like all have the same agenda in that regard, getting every group, Muslim or whatever, to integrate. And what does that mean in a Danish context, Danish political context? For me, it's mostly something about equality of genders, respecting homosexualities, or what's called the sexual minorities, and getting into the labor force. I think that's what it means.
What about respect for their culture and their way of living? Shouldn't be there?
Sure, of course.
Integration should be both ways, not only one way.
Of course, I've never heard anybody saying that a way to integrate for instance, a Muslim guy is to have disrespect for Muslim culture, if there is such a thing. I don't think that's an issue. If anybody in even the Danish People Party say that, I think they will get excluded. So, don't you?
Of course.
They have a lot of examples of people having offensive rhetoric about Middle Eastern culture or whatever. That's not acceptable. That's un-Danish, I would say.
But it happens. Anyway, I want to ask you about your party, because Social Democratic Party, do you think they have done enough for working class and ethnic minorities to, for example, for voting and for being politically active? And do you think they are doing enough?
That's kind of two questions,
you, but the party.
But that's if maybe we should divide the question. If they've done enough for working class people and for ethnic minorities, you can of course be an ethnic minority and a part of the working class.
Of course.
So, and well, I think my party have done more for the working class than any other party the last 100 years. And I also believe that it just happens to be that most of the people which are ethnic minorities in Denmark have lives which resembles the working class. They would benefit from a society which values individual talent more than family connections or whatever. That's the idea about the social democratic ideology.
But then tell me why your party, Social Democratic Party, which talks about equality, respect for others, is flirting with Danish People's Party.
Flirting?
Yes. They're saying very openly, Henrik Sass Larsen and even Mette Frederiksen have said that it's not unthinkable that we can make alliances with them.
Okay, so why are the Social Democratic Party making alliances with the
Danish People's Party?
Okay, that's a fair question. I believe that we are the biggest party in Denmark. Danish People's Parties are the second biggest party in Denmark. They are democratically elected. And if we said we don't want to make agreements or alliances with a party which are democratically elected on issues which we agree on.
Hitler was also democratically elected, you know that?
What?
Hitler was also democratically elected, and look what he did.
I think you got a very, very big misconception if you're comparing Hitler with the Danish People's Party.
I'm not comparing them, I'm saying that democratically elected doesn't mean that you have a good opinions.
Definitely not, and that's what I also said. If there's things which we agree on with the Danish People's Party, it would be intolerant of us not to work with them. Equality is also means that we...
What if they come to you every 6 months and they say we want these and these tightening of these laws and that law, which they did with Venstre? Would you accept that?
No, everything we don't agree on, we wouldn't accept. Everything we do agree on, we would accept. And that's the thing.
For your election, have you talked with minorities? Because there's a lot of votes in that area where you would be contesting. Did you talk to the minority NGOs, made some material in those languages?
I would like to answer that when I've just finished the other point, because I think it's quite crucial. Of course, you shouldn't cooperate with anybody which have an opinion which is not yours. But in a democracy where no party have a majority alone, it's also important to work with whoever can support your legislation when we do agree. But the Danish People's Party on a regional level, in my region, have behaved like outrageously. So as many Danish People's Party have done recently. Did you see Søren Krab calling the French president a little homosexual in the context of why he wouldn't vote for him? Because he's a little homosexual guy. Imagine a Muslim imam said that. Then we would probably hear the same guy saying what kind of problem that would be.
I agree with you.
So, and the same guy has also... That's a big issue. Let me just finish.
No, but we are coming to the end of the program.
Because I want to say the thing about the regional.
Quickly.
Okay, quickly.
I want you to look at the camera and say why people should vote for you.
Okay, but can I say lastly before?
Quickly.
Danish People's Party in our region was opposed to renting a room out at a hospital, which was not being used to immigrant children, which came from Syria without their parents, based on the fact that one, the children might have worsened the condition of the sick people when they played football. Secondly, because they were worried about the children smoking on a non-smoking area. That's how ludicrous they are. So of course you shouldn't cooperate with anybody saying that's crazy stuff. But elsewhere, of course, it's okay.
Well, I'm happy to hear, Jarl, that you as a member of Social Democratic Party will not work with any party which is not treating everybody equally.
Of course not.
And I hope that this young man's views are wonderful enough for you to vote for him. Hopefully we'll invite him again before the election. And until next time, take good care of yourself.